favorite podcast, Cinephiles IO. We're back. We're here. We're ready to talk.
How's our favorite podcast? It's my favorite podcast. Though Spotify confirmed that last year, but I don't know
Absolutely,
about
bro.
yo. Philly, how was your
I
week,
feel like
bro?
we had a couple people that were up there forever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think we're like 5, 6 people. We're the
yeah.
number
That's a
one
decent
podcast.
number.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good. For our
I
first year,
felt like,
that's good.
there's some truth in it because really and truly, if you're not listening to the Cinephiles IO, who are you listening to?
What are you doing, man?
What are
Who's
you?
who's giving you a breakdown on recent movies and films?
Who's being inconsistent? Like, come on.
Well, how's your week, bro?
It was a good week. Going back into pickleball, started running a lot more for like run club and stuff because I'm doing a half marathon in July. So
Oh, did you see
yeah,
that tweet where they were like, as you approach 30, all your friends just start running half marathons and marathons?
man, it's true, man. And I feel like it's one of those things where you grow up playing football, and
Uh-huh.
like footy is like really just it's a lot of running, bro. You're playing on a full pitch. It's like a decent amount of running, and
Yeah,
if you go from that to like either playing intramurals or barely playing at all, just like
hmm
casual club ball, you're gonna miss that fitness.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? How's your week?
My week was good. Excited to say I saw a movie every day and I saw Dune Part 2 twice. And I cannot get that. There's a part in the score when Hans Zimmer has that lady just shrieking, like, or whatever she's saying. Bro,
Yeah.
it's stuck in my head. That's my early morning alarm. And I'm like, I wouldn't have it any other way. So I've listened to that score countless times. I can't get enough. But my week was good. Not much going on outside of that. Just the same old work, movies in New York, New Jersey, So,
Okay. Yeah, I also saw Dune, and
uh-huh.
this is a very
Uh-huh.
this is the pod.
Uh-huh.
Pod. Now,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the legend, the Muad'Dib, his saga ascent from Kaladin's reign to Arrakis' throne. Destiny's main, in his spice, he's ordained the seer, the leader, the desert's prime dealer. Like Escobar's reach, but in spirit, he's a healer. The feminine achiever. Through his trials and sand, with the visionary's hand, the more deep stands, uniting the land. His word, his bond across dunes beyond. The Lisan Al Gaib, of whom we're all fond. We're talking about Paul Muad'Dib Usul Atreides.
Oh my god. 10 over 10, man. 10 over 10.
Thank you so much.
That is an insane intro, bro.
I love it.
Oh, you should have
That's
told
how
me.
you carried me spiritually.
I would have come with something prepared if I had known that's how we're moving. God damn. Say that line about Escobar, what did you even say? Some
Yeah,
healer.
the desert's prime dealer, like Escobar's
The
reach,
desert's
spirit,
prime
the healer.
dealer.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
you
got
have
spice.
cooked. You have cooked successfully,
You got
man.
spice. Like real talk, spice is coke.
Mhm. I know. I agree. Talking about, this is essential for space travel. Okay. I mean, I don't do coke, but I imagine if I do coke, I would also get so high and feel like I could float through space and time. So I got you, bro.
I think we can talk about this later in the episode because, like, I feel like a lot of people don't really know how why Dune and why Arrakis is so
Hmm
important to the Empire and why
Yeah.
spice is so important to the Empire.
Yeah.
Okay. But tell me, let's dive straight up reactions to the film that you've been waiting for like 3 years.
Been waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah,
Initial reaction. Are you asking me for my initial reaction?
absolutely. Don't
Okay.
give me no critic review mumbo jumbo.
Uh,
Tell me how that shit
I
was.
don't do that. When it comes to Dune, I don't take any critic's opinion higher than mine, bro. I am Frank Herbert himself. But anyway, so I've been waiting for this since October 2021, which is when the first part was released. I kind of went into that film not too sure if there was going to be a part two because the part two hadn't been greenlit by the studio.
Mm,
And so, but I think maybe right before I got to the third act or during the third act, I knew there was going to be a part two because of the way the story was going. And so I've been waiting for this since then. I really loved part one in case it wasn't obvious.
mm,
And on the last episode, when me and you spoke, I said at the end how, Nolan said this was like our generation's Empire Strikes Back, and how he said, this was similar to how massive of a sequel The Dark Knight was. And I'm like, going forward, this was before I'd even seen the film. I was like, going forward, it's just going to be Dune Part 2. So I had very, very high expectations for this. Very high. Let's just like set that baseline. I got in there and the score already, right from the very first scene, the pictures, it was clear that even though it was the same people working on the film, the same crew,
Mhm.
everyone was putting in more effort, more intentionality, more attention to detail. The little things, the very little things like the Sadukar and the way they, glide through, it looked better. It looked more believable, more feasible. Um, and that's just the beginning. That's like the first 10 minutes, bro. The acting, the way it transitioned, like from the first part to this part, every single member of cast has a more defined role, has like more convincing performances, more convincing dialogue. I don't, we can go like when we talk, I'm sure we'll talk about each person individually, but the cast generally, it seems like between 2021 and 2024, something like woke up in them and they all just deliver like very, very convincing performances. Cinematography, I tweeted this, but this is Greg Fraser's best work ever. um should I keep going? My reaction to this was it was a masterpiece. Best sequel I've ever seen. Like, in me personally, I haven't seen Empire Strikes Back. Like, God rest that man's soul, but I haven't seen that. But obviously I've seen all the ones that came out in our generation's time. Best sequel I've ever seen. Best cinematic experience. I've like I personally have experienced. Um, what are you about to say?
Nothing.
Oh,
I'm listening.
yeah. I'm not gonna be crazy and call it one of the best films of all time. I don't think it's that. I'm also not going to say it's the best film of the 20s. I think that's very disrespectful to Oppenheimer. But
One
it was it
thing,
was a massive success. It exceeded, again, like I said, I had very high expectations. It exceeded my expectations. I was not expecting something of this level. I was expecting to be immersed in this world that Denis has been wanting to build for years, and I knew he was going to build a truly immersive world. I wasn't expecting to be this drawn in, this sucked in, and I was expecting it to feel long. It didn't feel long. So all of that combined, like, I was exceeded my expectations. That's what I had. That's my initial reaction.
okay, I love that. I love that. For me, I think Dune was everything I expected it to be. And that's interesting because, like, I am a hater, massive hater. And, when you read the Dune books, like, because I read the Dune books, audiobooked the second book, audiobooked the third one. Yeah, we've been doing it for a while, my guy.
We've been doing it for a while.
We've been doing it
That's
for a
funny.
while. And when
Yeah.
like Dune Part One came out, I was like, what? And I felt like maybe it was one of those things, one of those like low ADHD things where like you you read something
Mm-hmm.
when they make the adaptation of it, you're not really as impressed because you know what's going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
it's not new stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like it was an okay movie. So I thought the second time it's gonna be an okay movie. And like actually no, let me say it this way. I wanted it to be a great movie. I wanted Part Two to be a great movie, but I was afraid that it would not meet expectations. Because
Okay.
what I told you, bro, the source content, insane.
It's massive.
It is
It's
insane.
massive.
It's so
Yeah.
good. It's not even just about just like the sheer size. It's so good. But the thing is that for a lot of people, and I really want to say this to our listeners who have watched Dune and who want to go read the books, please, this is not an easy read.
It's not several
This is
hundred
not an easy
pages.
or basic read. Like you've got a massive world that you're getting like thrust in, and you're also getting a lot of new terminology in English, like a lot of new languages, and almost like new words. Like there's Arabic also being thrown at you for a good chunk of the book. So just want to say, it is not something that you just simply pick up and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to pick up Dune Messiah and read. And there are changes where we will dive in, like that the movie deviated from like the original book because sometimes you just have to streamline things just to like keep everyone's attention and keep the vibes. And there are some weird things in the book that you can't really just adapt as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, would say loved it. Felt
Thank you.
very much sucked in to the film. will call Steve a liar 110% because I know when my legs were tired, when I was tired of sitting down. I know. So this was not just like oh my God, like the time just went by. My
The
brother, we
time
had
flew
2 hours and 46 minutes.
The time flew by. I disagree vehemently. The time flew by.
It was incredibly, especially by the third act, it was incredibly invigorating. It pulls you in. It's exciting. It's a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to say that this movie was not, it didn't feel long, that's a lie. That's a bit of a lie.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not the only one that feels this way. So I feel somewhat justified in thinking it didn't feel maybe it's because by the time the third act comes around, it's like okay, you're sitting up for this, it's
Exactly.
yeah.
You do the FIFA sit up. You
Exactly.
do the FIFA
Exactly.
sit up a couple of times.
And
Yeah.
I think that was intentional, because part one, a lot of the I don't want to call them criticisms because I don't think they're criticism, but some people felt like it was too slow. There were moments where they were too slow, like the sand walk when Paul and Jessica are crossing the desert. That was too slow. In any part of a film that's carried by Hans Zimmer, I'm not just saying Dune now, any Hans Zimmer flick, right? He has these weird moments, and it was most clear in The Creator that I just saw. But he has these weird moments where he like disappears. And in Dune Part One, he disappears a lot. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of moments that are filled with nothing, and then he just like resurfaces with like
Yeah.
a banger. But in Dune Part One, it's a lot of silently moving parts, and so people felt like it was, boring, quote unquote. And so in Part Two, it's here and there. It's not as much, but it's here and there.
Part two, the only time that I notice his absence is I'm not okay. We're gonna dive into like specifics of the film, but
Mm-hmm.
right now I just want to like reference it. It's the part at the end, and it makes it feel so much more real.
Which part at the end?
I don't want to talk
Oh,
about it now.
okay, okay, okay,
Like
okay,
into like the analytical points, but
okay.
yeah, um, Dune, crazy film, way better than the second film. Interesting enough, it climbed up like Letterboxd's like top 10 best movies ever.
Mm-hmm. Which is
Wild.
insane. Yeah, that's wild.
Letterboxd is filled with haters and one-liners.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually thought one thing that we could have done for this episode is like read the 3-star reviews of Letterboxd because I'm just like, I wonder what they're saying.
The
Because I feel like
haters.
3-star reviews are the only actual real negative reviews.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like when you're like, if you give a movie a 1-star, unless
You're
it's really horrible,
horrible. You're really just hating. Like you're
you're really
actually
just
really
hating.
hating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So a 3-star is really where it's like it comes down to like, okay, these are things that I genuinely did not like. Like you were
Like
actually
about this.
film,
Mm-hmm.
you gave it a chance. These are things that were not great about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did
So
you
we're
have
not
any pulled up?
doing that. But I feel like now it's a lot better to have like just an open conversation about how Dune felt and what that meant. And like what
Okay.
we liked and what changes were made and so on. So before we get into it, we're gonna let you guys know right now. This is about the 14th minute. There will be spoilers.
Spoiler warning. Massive
So
spoilers
you know
ahead.
what? Pause right now. Go watch Dune. Come back 2 hours and 46 minutes later.
Mm-hmm.
Then press play, and you can hear how we feel about Dune and the things that popped in and that made this movie such a great film.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, straight to the fan fest. Let's go straight into it. All right. I feel Timothée Chalamet.
Timothée Chalamet. Oh, where do I
You know what?
begin?
I think I texted you this. He's no longer Timothy. He's Timothée.
Timothée.
Timothée. Oh
Timothy.
my god, bro.
Sorry if I'm hijacking at this point,
No,
but
go on, bro.
I'm very familiar. I've said this countless times. I'm very familiar with his game. He's an actor that I have seen so many times, and what I'll say is a lot of his roles. What's the actor equivalent of director Jill? I guess that's just being typecast. But a lot of his roles, his typecast as the
No
script.
typecast.
His what?
He's like so typecast, like
Yeah, as
he's
like the
like the
scrawny.
mysterious lover boy.
Yes. Or
Yeah.
the scrawny, like the scrawny white kid that's like, always under an understudy, or, he's hopelessly in love with this girl or man, if you're
Oh
talking about
man.
Call Me By Name,
Oh,
that that doesn't like him,
when you got him.
doesn't like him, back. And so it's just like continuous. Dune was kind of, well, King maybe, but King, he was still scrawny. He was still a little kid.
Scrawny, but I think realistically though, Dune he was still scrawny.
Mhm.
But
But we're seeing growth. There was growth. Like there was so much growth from the first 15 minutes in Caladan of Dune Part 1
mhm,
to the Dune 2, like Dune Part 2, when he's
Act
leading,
three of the
not
circle.
even before Act 3, like during the build up, when he's
Okay.
leading, when he rides a worm. I mean, when he rides a
But
worm, he's
before
not
I would even I would argue. Wait, does he become Uso before he rides the worm or after? After the Shahulu.
after the Shahulud, after he conquers
Okay, okay.
Shahulud.
That
Yeah.
was when he really ascended for me. Like that was like when I was noticing like this is a hell of a performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when he became Fremen, and and I'm just like, I think what I was going to say, what I was leading to is he's exceeded in those roles, and people would have made the argument before that, maybe he doesn't have as much range. He showed that in Wonka. He held, like, Wonka was the first time he had a major motion picture that was his, as his
Mhm.
own, and lead act, and he held his own. Obviously, it was a joke of a role, whatever you want to call it, but
Whatever.
he was singing, it was a musical, but he showed that he can hold a film on its own. And then in Dune Part 2, he shows that he can carry everybody else in the cast. Like, they're dancing on his shoulders, they're feeding back off his performances, especially in that scene, the scene that everyone's raving about. What an actor. The next movie star, whatever, all the
Even
superlatives,
the
they're not. And
next movie star. It's him.
he's here.
He's him. He's here. And you know the wildest thing about this is that this isn't like his third role that he just blew up with. You get me? He's put in
Mm-hmm.
the work, bro.
He's put in time. He's put
He's
in
put
his
in
10,000 hours.
time.
Yeah.
He has like a filmography, like an actual filmography.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And
bro.
like to get like, and you can just like, I'm not gonna say that you can see the ascension, but like you really can see like this little guy who started off like painting and modding Xbox 360 controllers, like the guy in
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful Boy
Yeah. I
to
love
this.
Beautiful Boy.
Oof,
Yeah.
oof.
He has grown a lot. He's actually one of these days I might just, drop my Timothy performances ranking. But he's really grown. He's shown so much. He was in Interstellar. He was a kid in
Yeah,
Interstellar.
you couldn't sort of- yeah.
And like from there to, I mean, that was what, 10, 12 years ago. So obviously he should have grown. But to grow from there to, yeah, I was very impressed. I also said this on Twitter, but there was that scene, the final act. I've watched this man countless times, and he was almost unrecognizable in that scene where he was speaking the Fremen language,
Yeah.
and he was just like standing heads and shoulders, and like he bent down at one point, and it's just like, who is this? Like, what are you doing, bro?
Yo, that little squat he did,
Yes,
he looked Broski in his eye and was like, "Your mother got like cut when she was like,"
yeah,
and he's like, "How
yes,
did
bro.
you know this?" And it was like, "Cause I'm him." I'm him. That was really honestly the moment where he was like, "None of you will challenge me because you're afraid."
Mhm.
I was like, "Whoa!" In front of everyone, and these are no nobles. You get me? Like this is just
Yeah, he's
these
an
are men
elite.
that have been fighting for their lives since like 7, 8.
Yeah.
Insane performance.
Oh no,
Insane.
he carries it. He carries it well, and the fact that he, like, in that scene, obviously, again, it's because it's the trajectory of Paul Atreides. But in that scene, when you're looking, which is why I struggle with the whole white savior rhetoric that people are painting.
Oh my
In that
god.
scene, I can see evil in his eyes. He's talking about saving them. He's talking about, oh, you guys are afraid, and
Yeah, leading
I'm the
back.
only one that can. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I can see evil in his eyes, even when he's talking to Jessica about, oh, Chani doesn't understand, but I've had visions. She'll come to understand. it's not love I see in his eyes. It's not admiration for his lover that doesn't understand. It's evil that I see in his eyes. And it's just like he understands who Paul becomes, he understands who Paul is, and
Mhm.
he's like able to display that with his body language, with his facial structure. Like he's just able to convey that.
I think a very interesting point to talk about when you talk about Dune is that you see him at various points trying to fight against this destiny that he has. And I'm not going to call it destiny, like to enter the propaganda to achieve his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see him fight against it, not wanting to go to the cells. You see him multiple times. I'm not the Messiah.
Yeah.
You sound like a guy. You were so humble.
He's so humble, he doesn't even want to say he's the Messiah. Yeah.
It's still gonna kill me. But really and truly, like you see him move in genuine fear of what he might be becoming to these people to fully embody it. And he just like he rocks it, man. He really rocks it. Like
Yeah.
even down to the part where like he almost died. You get like when he peeled away with his own
Mm-hmm.
worm, no one questioned, no one came after him
Yeah.
because they trust him. He's the prophet. He's more
He's
deep.
not he's not trying to, like you said, he fights it. He fights the whole
Mhm.
Messiah, whatever. I'm no Messiah. He says that countless times. I'm no Messiah. He fights his mom
He fights
when
his
she's trying
mom
to
for it.
spew these prophecies or these,
Mhm.
plants. And that didn't just start. It started in part one. There's a scene in the tent where he's like, "Get off me! You Bene Gesserit made me a freak."
Yeah,
Saying that you've been planting these seeds in amongst this Fremen people. He's been fighting this his whole life,
he's been.
fighting leadership
I think
from
he's been fighting. He's been fighting it since he was on Caladan.
yeah.
Like
There's a
that
scene
whole
with
desire to be, yeah, where he's talking to his father and he's like, I want to be a pilot.
yeah,
And he's like,
yeah,
great men get called to lead even when like they don't want the power, like blah blah blah.
yeah,
And it's like he's been fighting. He knew he was meant to be, or he's being groomed to be the Quisar Kadar. But
yeah.
he did not. I don't think he innately knew that his destiny was going to align with the Fremens.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me think about how evil, like the Bene Gesserit are. How, especially his mother. His mother is. I feel like so
Lady
many people spend so
Jessica.
much time talking about how evil the Baron is, how evil the Harkonnens are, and I won't. And I will say this 110 times. The Harkonnens are. It's so easy to call them like the bad guys of the
Mm-hmm.
film.
The
How
villains.
they look. Not gonna lie. How many bald guys, like bald white guys, like super pasty white skin like that, you think that's generally a good person?
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
But
Yeah.
like the white savior discourse just makes me feel like, yeah, you guys did not understand the movie. And I'm not even trying to come from like an elitist point of view or like a film
Yeah, I
snob
know.
point of view. Just from a realistic point, the whole movie is making fun of. It's a cautionary tale
It's a
of
cautionary
people
tale.
who
That's what
have
it is.
messiahs. Like we've talked
Mm-hmm.
about this multiple times about so many of like the cautionary tales, like Oppenheimer, um, Wolf of Wall Street. Like
Yeah.
we've brought these up in reference to
Mm-hmm.
other things, and it's just like there's so many like warnings and like critiques of certain things that happen. Like to bring this back, like full throttle. Like I think for me, I left the cinema like I'm massively impressed. I was
Very
like,
impressed
damn,
in
bro.
Dini.
It'd be kind of fun to have a little Messiah. I see why niggas were eating
Yeah.
this up like that. You get
Yeah,
me?
yeah,
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 like I need him to come back. Let me run my thing. Maybe I should become more Christian, more Catholic. You know, but because yeah, it's like a fun time to like see a guy like do miracles. That's the
yeah.
guy you're
Mm-hmm.
following. He's cool. He's on top of his things, bro.
Yeah.
Charisma, inspiring. I see why I see why
It's intoxicating.
it's bro.
It really is intoxicating. The faith can be intoxicating. Belief can be especially like
Mhm.
imagine if you were alive when Jesus was alive and you were watching him like raise people from the dead, but you were watching him turn water into wine. Like you would be so like gas, bro. You know
Now,
what I mean?
now think about all the people that were alive before Jesus came, because John the Baptist and
Yeah,
all the nuns or everyone was like, oh yeah, the savior is coming, the savior is coming.
coming.
Do not
Yeah,
rise up against your oppressors. Do not
stay
fight
down,
back.
stay humble. It's okay.
Yes, your
This
savior is
person's coming
coming,
to
your
save
time
you.
will
Yeah.
come. And that is
Mm-hmm.
essentially what the Bene Gesserit
The
were doing
Gesserit. Yeah.
all over the world. All over. You go to a little developing nation, don't rise up, don't fight, blah blah
It's
blah.
okay. Keep your
Then
head down.
give them a child, control the gender of the child so you can now just like ship them off or something and get another one. Like it's
Yeah.
like there's actually a very good argument to have about eugenics, but realistically, the Bene Gesserit and like I really like how like when you read the books, like and you also like read things where people are talking about Herbert and like his writing and Dune, it's like I feel like being Catholic, you cannot watch Dune. Being Catholic and being African, you cannot
Mm-hmm.
watch Dune, watch what the Bene Gesserit do, and not think about like colonization,
Yeah.
bro.
Bro, you are me. I said that in my review. I felt like it was the analogy because people said that the analogy was like the struggle in the Middle East, and they likened spice to oil, which I can see. But I felt like the struggle was more about the struggle for Africa, or the book was loosely inspired by the fight or the struggle for Africa, and that's how I feel. Colonization, using religion as a tool for oppression. And just in reference to what you just said, how Denis is trying to paint, or Frank Herbert was trying to paint a cautionary tale. Full
Mm,
disclosure, I haven't read the book, but I've watched enough videos and I've watched the 1984 Lynch Dune. And I've watched Dune so many times to
mm,
like get an idea of what it's about, but it doesn't match to reading the book. I get that, but I know what Chinese character is meant to be like,
mm.
and I can see the deviations that Denis made with her
Yeah,
character. And I
he
think
kind of uses her as like this moral ground.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
He makes it literal,
yeah,
because I can see how without, you know, some of the tweaks here and there, you can picture this as a white savior story. But he makes it quite literal with her. She yells in front of everyone, this prophecy is how they enslave us. She
man.
fights it so many times that he's
Imagine
not
in
the
front of
prophecy.
everyone, the untouchable Messiah. He's just a man.
He's just a man,
Yeah,
and he says it, in the scene when he becomes the emperor, everyone kisses, and the emperor kisses his ring, and everyone kneels, and she's still standing.
yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like he literally could not have made it more obvious that he's not advocating for a white savior story. He's
Like
instead like,
there's
this is a
nothing about
cautionary tale.
saving.
Yeah.
There's nothing about saving.
um
And I think the thing is that okay, so I feel like to break it down, like Dune really explores like super heavy themes about power, destiny, colonization, and environmental destruction. And I feel like in the film, like it does a good job of handing these things to the general audience. And the major core idea for me is like we just talked about this, like this corrupting power of like this Messiah destiny based leadership imposed on.
yeah,
And the film shows how he goes like that whole reluctant hero to embracing his power and the quote unquote terrible purpose. Do you get me? Oh, I don't want to do this. Like he makes
yeah,
it like and like it's I think again on Paul's side, he benefits the most out of all of them. Because
mm-hmm,
yes, what he's doing is like yes, it helps the Fremen,
mm-hmm.
but at its core, who is in power? They simply I remember the scene very well when she was like I think it was Chani that was talking about like, okay, like we get rid of the Harkonnen, then who is on your oppressor? Then they cut to Paul.
Exactly,
They
exactly.
literally just cut to Paul's scene. And it's exactly that. It's really just an exchange of power. Like the Fremen are truly never free. It just becomes like another leader. It's another person,
Another foreigner in charge of
another
them.
foreigner, and
Yeah.
that's again like the word Lisan al Gaib literally transfers.
Voice from the outer world.
Yeah, it's like the off-world prophet,
Yeah.
and it's again a means to control people because it's like he cannot come from you. He cannot be one of your people that is fighting, that is pushing you off, like pushing
Mm-hmm.
you to like deliver yourself from like your own like safety, like you take yourself to paradise. It has
Yeah.
to be someone who's gonna come learn your ways, thrive in your things, then
Yeah, and then they
yeah,
paint it like, oh, he would know your ways as if it was one of you. He like these
exactly.
things will come innate to him. You know what I mean? He'll speak your
Yeah,
language, walk in your shoes, and all of that. But these are just these are the ways, these are the tools that they're applying to.
exactly. And like the two biggest ways, like, and we see this contrasting between the Harkonnens and with Paul and the Fremen. The two biggest
Mhm,
ways that they show us that power and people are controlled is through like forced power, fear. We see that with the
mhm.
Harkonnens and through faith.
Through faith,
Like
exactly.
we see that with Paul. And like consistently throughout the film, I feel like you don't go like 15 minutes without, or yeah, you don't go like 15 minutes without hearing Stilgar, the Lisa Nagai.
As written, as it was written, you
Yeah,
know.
bro. Everything, every like 15 minutes, the Lisa Nagai for everything. And like there
Uh
are
huh.
genuine moments where it's like, okay, this is crazy, this is wild, like what he's doing is amazing. But like Jamis was a great fighter. Did they ever think Jamis was a Lisa Nagai? What do you mean? Like Chinese a great fighter.
No one has ever called her
No one
Lisan
is
Al
going to
Gaib.
Lisa
Yeah,
Nagai. He takes down a couple guys. Lisa Nagai. Where did you
yeah.
learn this from?
Yeah, but the moment that Stilgar really, really believes this is a water of life scene, so that's the moment that sets it apart. Like, it's the moment that fulfills the prophecy. You know, like the tears
Exactly.
from the desert spring,
Mm.
and no man can take the water of life, or they'll die, or whatever. And so, I think in that moment, Stilgar becomes helpless.
I get
You
that
know?
still, but I still feel like he is very much part and parcel to what is going on. He is one of the villains unknowingly. It is more
Yeah.
so. Um, what's that word? It's more so. You know how like I think it's Hosea. There's like when my people perish for lack of knowledge. You
Uh
know,
huh.
in the Bible, it's like that kind of vibe. He did not really know what was going on. He's just following
Yeah.
his ways. He's following the tradition, the
Yeah.
signs, and like even from the off rip, as soon as he says it, like the foreigner that we brought back with us, he's the guy. Then someone was like, again, another one.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
out there looking for the signs, and he's like, "Yeah, I've seen the signs. Of course, you
And
see it
see,
when you're
and
looking."
he's interpreting whatever he wants to see like as
Exactly.
a
And that's
sign,
like a
you
big
know.
thing, like it's a big faith thing. You get me?
Hmm.
Like you see like an accident, you're like, oh, that's a sign from God that I shouldn't do this or that. Do you get what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Like
I know what
any
you
small
mean.
thing you can just depict it as a sign from God.
Man, Denis is a genius because he's trying not to like you said, he has to leave a lot of things to the audience. You can't spell it out literally. But
Mhm.
this is as close to spelling it out as I've possibly
My
seen.
God, bro.
The
He
Shani's friend,
streamlined this movie, cut out so many of the weird parts because wallahi, bro, there's so many weird parts. Like,
because
okay, for one of the major things is that like, okay, this isn't weird, but this is an example of how he streamlined the movie. So
Mhm.
I can toss in a weird part just like to satisfy it. But the movie, you know how it takes like a year with Paul's time with the Fremen.
Uh-huh.
In the book, it's 3 years.
Yeah, in Lynch's version it's 3 years as well.
Yeah. So in the
Yeah.
book, it's 3 years, and that goes in depth to like how you feel about like the all the emotional aspects of the film. Like it makes a little bit more sense that the relationship with the Fremen is more it's more in depth. Do you get
Yeah,
me? It's
I get
based,
that.
and but it helps Paul because it feels like, oh, he's fighting off his demons and the destiny in the book. But in in Denis'
In
version,
Denis' world, yeah.
Denis' world, he's a colonizer. Either way, it doesn't matter how long it takes him, he still made the decision. So he
Yeah.
had like 7 or 8 months.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I feel like it's like he does so much for you to have very little empathy for him because at his core he is still an oppressor.
Mhm.
And like even when he gets to the things that he wants, like he's still casting aside people. It's not going to be enough. Like he still cast aside Chani, who had been with him
Yeah.
from offer
From the get-go,
from the
yeah.
get go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He still has his dreams, like his wants. And sure, you can paint them from his point of view how this like propels the Fremen forward, how this brings them to paradise, but
Yeah,
like, you know, his vendetta with the Harkonnens was one of the major driving factors,
it
you
was
know.
it was the major driving factor.
Yeah, and like
Well, the
avenging
thing
his
would not
father's
be
death.
Fremen at all if the Emperor didn't bring him from Caladan.
Yeah.
Like if his family was not set up, there would be nothing. It would be the same thing.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to say it's like a happenstance thing, but
Mm-hmm.
like he discovered the Fremen, like and like they helped him. And then he took advantage of them, and then he controls them, and then he also controls the most valuable resource in the universe,
Spice.
spice.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. You can't really feel bad for the guy that just he's winning, 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 winning.
Oh god, I can't wait to see what Denis does with. If we do get Messiah, I can't wait to see what he does with
Like
that.
the Messiah would be interesting, but I don't know if they would. I don't know how he's going to do certain things
I don't know. Like,
because he left out some things that I found like I felt like were pretty cool.
mm-hmm.
Like for example, the Fremen, the way they fight is completely different than in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so like
Do you mean the Fremen or the Atreides? Like the weirding way?
that's
Is that what you're
the
talking about?
the wedding way is from the Fremen.
Oh, I thought it was from. I think it's from the Atreides.
No, I think it's the Fremen. I think it's the Fremen.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay, okay,
because they're
okay.
just looking like just really good fighters, but they
Uh huh.
actually use like sound to cause physical impact on you.
I think that's from the Atreides.
Man, I read this book in like 2018, so like maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe
But
I'm maybe okay. Continue. Hmm.
basically leaving
He
out,
left that out. Yeah,
leaving that out is like it's kind of wild. Can't lie.
it's wild, but I like the creative decision because it would have been like I think it's one of those things that made Lynch's version not so good because if you can't like properly display something
Mhm.
on the silver screen, I think it's better to cut it out than to put it and then it looks weird. Like for
Mhm.
example, the what was I about to
Oh, the
say?
shield. It lit
The the shield, yeah.
shield in
Like
Lynch's version.
he didn't like Lynch's version. The shield in Lynch's version is ugly. It's terrible.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't
like a
see
big
the.
square. It's like you're
Hmm.
like Lego thing, and like you can't
Yeah,
really see yourself. It's like a big ice cube thing.
and even in part one, I didn't think it looked that bad, but it still was a little jarring sometimes. Like
Mhm.
it looked good close up, but from afar, it didn't look so good. And
Mhm.
and it was so clear that Danny tried to reduce how much shield was present in part two. You know, not many people have shields. Even the scene where the in
I feel
part
like another
one,
reason though is because they don't use projectiles. Like the Fremen aren't really using projectiles. Like
I get that,
yeah,
yeah, but it's still shield still works in close combat.
I think the blade can like sift
The
through.
slow blade, yeah,
Yeah,
the slow blade penetrates. That's
and
what they
that's how
tried to drum in.
and that's kind of like how the Fremen can fight. It's like it can be like a slow blade kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Again,
still like a creative. It was still a creative decision to like have less and less of it. And I was going to use a proper an actual example in part one when they're in that big dining room and Duke Leto uses the poison tooth.
yeah,
Before the Baron like as he's approaching Duke Leto, he like senses something is up and he activates his shield.
yeah, he does.
Right, then he gets to Duke Leto, he bites it, releases his poison. The Baron is the only one in the room that survives because of the shield.
Yeah,
In part two, we don't see the Baron use the shield at all, which for one, he had no reason to. But then in the scene in the throne room when everything's going down, he's like crawling up and he sees Paul Muad'Dib approaching him. Like that would have been an example where we've already seen, when he senses danger, he puts on his shield. But he could have put on his shield then and he didn't. Or just other scenes with like the Sadukar, the Harkonnens when they're in battle, like it's just less and less because Denis like agreed that it looked a little jarring. It wasn't that bad, but it was a
he
little
thinks
jarring, and so
so.
he just like cut it. So that's my opinion. Same thing with the Space Guild or with some of the other mentats.
Mhm.
We see like a couple mentats in part one. They don't look as convincing as what Herbert probably intended, and so he just
Exactly.
cuts it out. So I feel like if it's a valid creative decision if you feel like you can't accurately depict something, you know, Shai Hulud, he did a good job of depicting that,
He
bro.
did a
Compared
great
to
job.
Lynch's version, he did a good like I
With
see Shai Hulud and I can envision like I can imagine what Herbert was intending. So
Mhm.
we see more worms in this than
Oh,
in
absolutely,
part. Yeah.
absolutely. Especially like the last fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I
Mm,
think if it's although like to your point, in Messiah, when you make like certain creative decisions are integral to the story.
yes.
So it's not like he can choose not to show certain
Like
things because
I
they're
think one of another weird thing that like he did was he downplayed like Paul's power,
uh-huh.
like the prescience, like the seeing the future thing. Like he does it
Yeah.
very much like it's even worse than how like they did it in like in the MCU where like Doctor Strange was like shifting his head and doing
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he basically just like Paul basically just like opens his palm and is like there's a
Okay.
narrow
I
way.
can see, yeah.
And I'm just like, bro, we want to see you see in the future because that is
Yeah.
such a key reason to why that is such a key reason to why you're successful and why you chose this plan.
Hmm.
So he really
Hmm.
downplays it, and it's super powerful in the film. I mean, the book.
In
So
the
I was
book,
just
yeah.
thinking like that's an interesting one. Um, Another one that I feel like another change that he made that I feel like I agree with you. If it's weird, keep it away.
Yeah.
You think you can do it all? Was um again with the movie being 3 years. I'm sorry, with the book being 3 years and the movie being 1 year.
Alia.
Aliyah.
Yeah, I
Aliyah
knew
is
that's what you were gonna say.
she's born
Yeah.
and she's 2 and she's scary.
Yeah.
She is very creepy. She's a very creepy 2-year-old, and she's
Yeah.
actually the one that kills the Baron because
I know, yeah.
I think she and Leto get kidnapped. So
Leto or
again, that's
Gurney?
another thing. That's another thing. So Paul and Charlie's kids come out. I think they have 2 kids. They have
Not
twins.
before the Baron. Not before the Baron dies. Not
No,
before
I
the
think so.
Baron
I
dies,
think
no.
because I think the Baron kidnaps one of their kids.
No, the Baron takes Alia. I think it's Alia that
No, no, no.
gets taken.
I feel like I'm sure about this because I know Leto dies.
Leto's dead. Leto's Paul's dad. Who are you
Yes,
talking about?
but Leto too. He has like Leto dies. Like there's another he names his child after his dad. Like
Okay.
Leto and Ganizme or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so he has kids from Chani, and that's what Children of
Uh-huh.
Dune is about.
But that's post Children of Dune is post
My bad.
Messiah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
mixing that up. But like he does have kids that get kidnapped by the Baron in that war. Like inside
Okay.
that little like that they attack him that war. And
Yeah.
the last thing, which we're gonna pit back into this, is like you already talked about this, but the change for Zendaya and Chani to become like this, point of moral
See,
comparison is very
yeah.
interesting because initially she was by his side throughout. She was questioning
Yep.
a little bit, but she was by his side up to the
So,
point.
yeah.
Like when he said, I will forever love you and everything. He's like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to pick this woman as my wife. Like, but he doesn't just do it like that. I think Denny loves doing a little dramatic thing. He says more to her, and he's like,
Uh-huh.
she will be nothing but a concubine. She would only
Yeah.
have my name, but
Yeah.
live life with not knowing my touch and only knowing the life of a concubine. I am here for her title. I am here for blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like he cuts that out so that you don't feel sympathy. Do you get me? Because
I
right
know.
now
Yeah.
it really just looks like he is like by the end of the film, it feels like he has used them. He has
Uh-huh.
used Chani because
And he's
again,
left
we experienced
abandoned.
the
Yeah.
majority of the film between like through him and Chani.
Yeah.
He's used them. He has used Chani, and like nothing is sacred. Even though he can see the future, so he knows that Chani's pregnant.
What are you saying?
He can see the future, so he knows Chani's pregnant.
I did not know Shani was pregnant.
Oh, I just told you he has children with Chani
Yeah, but in the future, like in this moment, is she pregnant?
in the movie.
Yeah, at that
At the
moment
end
when
of the
he
movie,
takes
she's pregnant.
Irulent's hand.
You can see her touch her tummy. Like you can see her touch her tummy. And then so, like, yeah, she is pregnant. Chani's pregnant.
Holy mother of God. Yo, listeners, if you can see my face, I'm like wowed right now. Because I've seen that film twice. And
And
at no point did I clock that
she like holds her
she
back.
was pregnant.
That's so funny, bro. Yeah, because Chani being
Are
pregnant.
you sure?
Yes, her being pregnant is integral to the film, and is integral to like the possibility of him directing Messiah. We don't know if he's definitely directing Messiah, but like it is
My
integral to
God.
the
No,
possibility.
he's definitely directing. He's already started working on the script. He's already worked with. He's met
But it
with
hasn't been
Zimmer.
greenlit.
He hasn't what?
It hasn't been greenlit. Messiah has.
I know. Yeah, it hasn't. It
That's what I'm
hasn't.
saying. They might decide to cut cut it and run, because I will say this 100%. Dune gets weirder each book, and
I know.
with the fact that it gets weirder each book, it becomes a lot harder for you to
To
make it
adapt.
palatable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because like we haven't even gotten to like the space guild. We haven't gotten into
absolutely not. Like honestly, the Space Guild has like even in the first book, you kind of get them a little bit.
some a tiny bit, like in
Yeah,
the
a tiny
first
bit,
part.
but you
Yeah.
don't really like. He's barely done anything. Yeah,
Yeah. I know. So it's I know it's like one of the it's like whichever if the studio does greenlight it, they're committing to at the very minimum 250 to 300, which
absolutely.
is so I think it's a case where they need to see this film break even, make a lot of money to
Mhm.
justify putting basically whatever amount of money this film makes could just be like the cost of the next. So they're not like going to actually truly break even until like if they do greenlight Messiah, then until that succeeds. So it's gonna be harder to greenlight than part two, but they have to, bro. They have to.
Yeah,
Come on, they
I
have to.
get why you would say so, but I really feel like they might just cut their losses. But I really hope that they don't, because I'm not gonna lie. The first Dune was like an 83% success, and like I talked about how we had this conversation where I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
COVID probably played a part into like why that wasn't as big of a success, and just like the nature of the film being a bit more confusing.
And
It's,
also were released
yeah,
like it
the
went to
theatrical
HBO
release
Max
going
in
straight
like
to
weeks.
HBO, because yeah, so like that they don't feel they might feel like we're 1 out of 2 right
Mm-hmm.
now. We're 1 for 2 right now. We're recuperating losses. Like whatever we make on this
Yeah.
second, we're putting it to the first one also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nah, I don't know. I believe in I said this in my review. I just think we have to give like for the sometimes, right? It's why do we have to look at art in terms of like checkbook greens and reds? Like this guy is obviously making this is very important. This is a pillar of sci-fi. Dune the
this is
book
a
is a pillar
pillar
of
of
sci-fi.
sci-fi. Like I feel like I got very how you got upset when people were talking about White Savior. I didn't even regard that. I was like, yeah, you niggas did not watch the film, but you did not watch it. You failed at comprehension classes in school. Like you didn't pay attention. Like, but for me, it was when people were saying like comparing it to like Star Wars, and
Yeah.
I'm like Star Wars and Luke Skywalker, all that shit, Tatooine, that is Dune. Like Star Wars is like a literal watered down version. Like the prequels are so much of a watered down version of
Yeah.
Dune. Like,
Yeah.
and it's so man, it's sad. It's kind of sad.
It's
Like
sad. But
the themes are not as deep. It's not as complex written. Like it's like it's
I just my point is I think because this is a pillar of sci-fi, it's important that we don't let Villeneuve fail. If he's demonstrated twice now that he can and is able to adapt some like that book, the book that was previously termed impossible to adapt, he's done it twice over. We have to give him all we can, like all the support, all the whatever. Write this man a blank check and let him bring Messiah to life, man. That's how I feel personally. We shouldn't restrict art for the sake of greens and reds,
that's fair.
but
That's fair. I think that's. I feel like the film is just man. It's breathtaking. I'm really happy with us
that's
because it
right.
doesn't feel like we've given as many spoilers in this like,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
is like
I got a couple more in the bag.
I got a couple more in the bag, but I feel
There's
like I want to give them, I want to give them like
yeah.
a little bit more.
No, but just because there's a couple characters we didn't touch on, but Princess Irulan, that's another one. Because again, obviously, I've been following all the
That is
Dune
true.
accounts, and so when it was announced that like Austin Butler and Florence Pugh were joining the cast, it didn't really say what role that they were playing. It just said, they've joined the cast, and so a lot of because Jessica was pregnant
Yeah,
in part one, Jessica be pregnant for a hot minute, bro.
Yeah,
But that's
you're right.
that's by the way. Because Jessica was pregnant in part one, people thought there was going to be a time jump, a couple years or even sometime into the future.
Hmm.
And they thought that Florence Pugh was playing Alia, and then it was announced that she was playing Princess Irulan.
Yeah,
And there was communication about if that was a good casting or not, and I really had no idea. I had to see
I
it.
felt like it was a good casting.
It was really good casting.
Yeah,
That's
it
all,
was really good.
and even Austin Butler better casting. But I'm talking about Irulan right now.
Austin Butler was a
Mhm.
shocking casting, brother. That was shocking. I'm not gonna lie. Seeing him no
See,
eyebrows, bald head, and I think he was
I was not
something at
shocked.
the same time. I think he's filming Heat 2 or something. Ooh,
Yeah, or he's involved in production. I don't think he too started filming. I think he's involved in production. But as one of the people,
no, he was
you
filming
know,
Bystanders at the same time.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay. As one of the people that I did not take part in the Elvis hate. I thought Elvis was not that great a film, but I thought Austin Butler as Elvis was terrific. That was a
it
good
was good.
performance.
I think it was good.
I'm familiar with his game, and I wasn't like, obviously I was pleasantly surprised by what I saw, but I wasn't like, oh, I did not know Austin Butler had this in his bag.
Yeah,
Like that's an actor, like that's an actual actor, bro.
that's a tough one, bro. That's a tough one.
And
I'm not gonna lie.
I wasn't surprised. Plus, again, because he's a method actor, or he's going down the path of method acting. And lately, for some reason, for whatever reason, it's like we've grown, or the media has grown to hate method acting. When whole time, some of the very best performances we've ever seen have been from method actors. So it's just like, okay, it's a shame that he gets stuck in the role when he leaves the set, and like it took him a few months to wear off the voice, but like if he's able to deliver an actually good, convincing performance, who cares, bro? You know what I mean?
I'm not gonna lie
So
to you, bro. I don't. I feel like they're so pressed about the voice thing when he's a guy in his 20s. You worked on Elvis for 2 years. Girls go study abroad for like 7 weeks.
6 months.
You come back saying Petit Prince? What? Come back sounding like
Ex-
Rosaneri? What do you mean, bro?
exactly,
Bro,
bro. 2 years.
give him like yeah, he's like literally 2 years. He was perfecting how to speak in that manner, bro.
Yeah.
Like it's going to stay with him again because they're like, oh yeah, his voice is so deeper now. I'm like, he developed. He's a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like that
and I'm
happens
not thinking that.
naturally, There's this thing called like not puberty, but there's
It
this thing
wasn't
called growing. It's not puberty, but like just growing.
Yeah, you
That it
just
just
get like
happens.
a deeper voice, like
Yeah.
you boom a little bit more. Like it is what it is. I was just like, damn, bro, was just like sitting on, bro, like so crazy. This was a great because nothing like you've seen from Austin Butler would make you think that he can be
He can be
a
afraid. Yeah, yeah. He has
the
no. There's
fact that
no.
he
There's no
sounded
metric.
exactly like Stellan, that was
Oh my
scary, bro.
god.
The
Yeah,
fact that he sounds like a Skarsgård was so
yeah,
confusing.
yeah. I was a little perplexed. Like I know the relationship, but in the film, when I'm seeing, because there's a couple, maybe two scenes that Batista, Butler, and Skarsgård share together,
Yeah,
and I'm like, Skarsgård and Butler, I can see.
yeah.
Butler and Batista, or Batista and like, I mean, maybe Batista and Skarsgård because of the makeup and all, but in terms of persona, in terms of like the way that they're acting,
Mhm.
like Butler and Skarsgård are just uncle and nephew. Like it just
So
makes sense.
it
Like
makes
it really works,
it
and I
makes
think that's because of.
sense that like that is truly a younger version of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god, yeah. So those two I wanted to highlight. We've obviously already talked about Stilgar, but Bardem, Jesus, man, you carried this film in some ways that, no, I'm not saying he carried the film, but there's some aspects of the film
You're right.
that he carried, man.
He,
There's some aspects of the film that he was like, his back was hurting, especially in the humor department. His little jokes, his little quips here and there,
he
you
cooked for
know,
sure, bro. He bloody cooked.
and the transition too from, because the film picks up right where part one ended, so there's no time lapse,
Yeah.
right? And obviously Denis is intentional about that. He's making sure that everyone's acting the same way, like you're picking right up,
Mhm.
right? But with Bardem especially, he's the only one to me that it's like almost goes through a whole new character arc, because in the beginning he's this like really scared guy, not
Mm-hmm.
scared, scary guy who like brushes off Paul when he
Yeah,
sees him for the first time, and then when he sees him again, he's like still like the leader of this Fremen tribe or this Fremen warriors or whatever, and he's this really strong guy. And then bit by bit, it's like every 30 minutes he's becoming more subservient. He's becoming, and that's the power of faith, like you said.
that's the
Like
part of
every 30 minutes he's becoming
because
more
he sees the
subservient
signs.
because he sees the signs.
Yeah,
Right up until Act 3, where he's literally kneeling in front of Paul, begging Paul to take his life so he
exactly.
can speak at that circle. And it's just like,
Exactly.
bro, how many actors do
It's
you know are
really
able to
good.
like
You
deliver?
in your life. And again, like I don't know how to say this, but like the roles that you've seen Javier Bardem and Pulse, you don't think this is that guy. You don't like no. You think the part one Dune, that's Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
bro, I feel like everyone really dug deep in their bag. Rebecca Ferguson, I'm sorry, man. Whoever, if you need a franchise to save, get Rebecca Ferguson. She's done it 3 times now, bro.
Oh my God.
She's done it 3 times
Oh,
now. Like,
she's
bro,
just so good, bro.
she's so good.
It's kind of scary how good like she
So
was in this. The first time I said,
she
you
did
know,
no, she did it twice, my bad. But she basically did that Eto double trouble run. Trouble Abasa,
back to
trouble
back,
one.
entire Barcelona, don't kill me. But yeah, she because of, again, she also has a transition, right? Starts off, this loving concubine of Duke Leto, mother to Paul Atreides. She gets captured. She gets carried along by her son, blah blah blah. And another comparison, I think. Well, again, I haven't read the book, but from what I know about Jessica, I think Rebecca Ferguson puts in like a layer onto her that wasn't existing before. Like she adds onto the character in a way that doesn't necessarily, like, whatever deviations exist from the book. I'm using Lynch's version in my head, right?
Mhm.
Whatever deviations exist, they're for the better.
She's a bit more menacing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
The way she
And
talks to
so
people, like the subtleness and like facial reactions, like the disregard she has for people around her. She's a bit more
yeah.
menacing. And it's not like, and I don't want to make it confused. Like it's not meant to be like an over, like a scary. It's not a scary. Like you can't do anything.
It really isn't. Yeah.
You can't do anything. Like
Hmm.
when she goes to like say goodbye to Chani when she leaves, it's like, okay, I'm just here as a formality.
Yeah.
Like just to remind you that you can't do anything. You can't stop this. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think
She
this was a great film.
inspired acting. Is there any part I've not talked about? Oh, cinematography. I don't know. Genius decision to do the black and white thing for the Harkonnens.
Ooh, that was good.
The Black Sun, like, because Lynch did not have that. The thing I will say is the Harkonnens from the source material they're described as this like really savage, really like monstrous
Mhm.
people, a way of life. And Lynch does a better job of depicting that. Like he shows them eating raw animals. He shows them killing children for sport. Like the
Mhm.
Baron literally kills this boy one time just because. And like we saw that in part 2 a little bit, but it's not the same savage way. So I think um the decision to show it in the black and white sun and that gladiator fight thing,
Mhm.
those are just like very, very uh,
This is
yeah.
wild because I don't remember all of them. I'm gonna say this.
You don't remember all of what?
You know, you're gonna hear what I'm gonna cook. But
Okay.
I really feel like because I just thought about it when you were talking about like the savageness, and I don't think that is the intention. I think it's more. I feel like again a faith thing because again he calls it a jihad. Well, he doesn't call it jihad in the movie, but in the book it's called a jihad. Like if
Yeah.
you say holy war, it's a jihad, and like that means holy war. But like the holy war starts against the Harkonnens, and again it is the Messiah versus the seven deadly sins kind of represented in the Harkonnens. You have the
Okay.
rage that we see in Ravan. We
Mm-hmm.
have like the lust. We have
Yeah.
the greed, the gluttony that we see in the Baron. The Baron literally cannot walk. He has suspensions that like move
Yeah.
around. And like
Yeah.
the greed from like the colonization and like the hoarding of spice over the decades has made them incredibly wealthy. I don't remember what the other symbols.
Yeah, I mean that's fine.
Yeah, but
Envy,
like
something,
I feel like we
something.
can
Yeah.
definitely like map them on to like the way
That's a
that they act.
really good cook.
Yeah, like
Did you
the pride of
does this
Feyd-Rautha. Like
does it say the seven deadly sins in the book, or you're
I
like
don't
making
think
that
it
up?
does, but like in my head, it just feels like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
the pride
Look
of
at this film
Feyd-Rautha.
critic. Look at this film critic we got
Oh,
going on here. Okay.
pride of Feyd-Rautha, the pride of Rahman. Like Rahman, like the whole movie. Rahman, is it Rahman?
Raban.
Raban. I keep saying Rahman. Raban.
Yeah.
He's Raban. Like the whole movie, he's motivated by his pride. So that's when like he gets kicked by Feyd-Rautha, and it's like, don't embarrass us. Like, and
Yeah, you've embarrassed our
embarrass us, don't
family
embarrass
again.
our family again. So,
Yeah.
and even though he
Yeah.
knows he's going to die, again when he meets Gurney, he like
Yeah.
he does like a
He
little
still has to
yeah.
fight. He still comes out to,
He still
flex his.
he still has his pride,
Yeah.
you know? Like
That's a
yeah,
really good one. Yeah, I like that. I like that. But yeah, I just thought the Black Sun was the thing of genius. And then if like the seven deadly sins, like just showing them in their vices, he does more
in
of
the
that in
whole vices.
yeah, he
Because
does more of that
again,
in Portugal.
these guys are eating spice in their food. This is not cardamom, bro. You're getting a bit high. I know people want to say like it's part of their culture, yes and no. I don't. I think also like you don't really get like a really good, like a really thorough example of like their culture beyond like when someone dies and they put their water, they return their
Yeah,
water
in
back.
that yeah.
So I would say it's really just so like you see more of the Harkonnens and they're like, oh my god, these guys,
Yeah.
they're a problem. We need to take them out. So
I have a question.
you catch yourself like rooting for them.
Yeah. I have a question. I know you said you read this in 2018, which was like 6 years ago, but in Lynch's version, another key change is when Paul ascends to the throne, when he kills the when not kills, he doesn't kill the emperor, but when he takes Irulan's hand and
Mhm.
says he's declared himself emperor, it rains in Arrakis. Like rain starts to fall immediately. Do you recall that happening?
I don't recall that happening in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what that was, because some of their, you know how they have like trillions of or millions of or thousands of water
Yeah.
depots scattered around, but then the Harkonnens like destroyed some of them. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how paradise comes to be, if that's the way, if it's that water that they have stored, or if I don't know. But don't obviously you don't have to. We don't have to talk about
No,
that
I feel
since
like
that's
we can. I can go back and like look up, and then we can have a
okay.
discussion on it. Like just like
Okay.
personal talk, because
Okay.
that's
Okay.
very interesting because I kind of forgot about that it rained.
Yeah, it was like Lynch just brought rain, and then all the Fremen were like, "Oh my goodness, Lisan
Yeah.
al Gaib, paradise, all of that."
But I
But
like how Dune like Denis ends it because now almost with no rest they are thrust into a war.
yeah,
Like they are
yeah.
thrust into another war, so they are still fighting for their lives.
Oh my God, Timothy's delivery of that. What shall we do? What's your response? And then he's just like, you can see again. This is the last time he fights it, right? But he's been fighting it all film. He's been fighting all part one, fighting all part two. He takes like a sigh and he's like, lead them to paradise. But his delivery of that so reluctantly, so it's like he knows what it's coming. He's like, I see billions of people dead fighting the war in my name, and
Yeah.
he's trying to avoid that. But then these people are coming, and the great houses are sending.
And if he
They're like, we're
waits,
about to attack.
the thing is that if he waits and he doesn't actually like, if he never went against the Emperor, if he never went against like the Harkonnens are gonna kill him and the Fremen. And it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, like broski, like it's gonna happen, bro. I might as well benefit from
yeah.
it.
But yeah, that delivery of lead them to paradise, and then there's like a split second where everybody screams, and then Hans Zimmer obviously goes crack mode. But that delivery was just like,
Bro.
bro, this film exceeded, like, he just
Fantastic.
did so well, just fantastic. It's not every time, it's not every year that we get a film like this. The way I raved about Oppenheimer and how every detail was taken into consideration and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
When we see a filmmaker that's capable of making a film truly epic. It could be an epic biographical drama. It could be an epic science fiction film. But if we see a filmmaker that's really like capable of delivering, we have to do all we can to protect them, man, and to
Absolutely.
support them. We can't allow them fail. So yeah, give him the keys to Warner. Give him the blank check. Let him cook, bro.
So, thank you for tuning in to the Cinephiles IO. We love this. We hope you watch Dune. If you haven't, if you have, we want to hear what you have to say. Send us whatever you want to say. It's a fun time. Dune is great.
Listen out, guys.
And out, guys. More deep.
It's been a great time, lads. We'll see you same time in a couple of weeks.
Same time in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, we'll be more consistent. But dry January is done, so all those mid movies are gone. February was a bit iffy, but But from now we're getting closer to summer, so like most of like the real big boy releases are about to be dropping. So we're gonna be talking about those. Hope you guys have a great time. All right.